Hey everybody, Dustin DePierre here, calling this Andy Graham.
You?
The voice could be better today. I'm apologizing in advance. It's probably going to be rough. Anyway, I don't know, it's cold stuff. Apparently this is going around.
Both of us, but his is more scratchy than mine, I think, which is shocking.
Yeah, no, it's severe.
Compared to the way it's been the last couple of days for me.
Anyway, so Michigan State 42, Indiana 28. I guess the talk of repeating, of handling success well, all those kinds of things can come into play here. But I think really what happened was you saw Michigan State defense that's really, really good and Indiana defense that's just not so good. And those things kind of played out in some ways as you'd expect.
Yeah, you talk about repeating. It was a lot like the Missouri game, really,
yeah, it was.
where I think Indiana's maybe just playing a better team, and it kind of shows that way. Missouri spanked Georgia today in Athens. And
Missouri's a really good team.
6-0, and they're pretty
Missouri's
good.
a really good team.
I think Michigan State, if they get their offense going, is pretty good because they have the nation's #1 ranked defense coming into today. Their offense, which put up some nice numbers at Iowa last Saturday, really clicked today. They started out 0 for 2 on third down conversions, and then, by my count, converted the next 10.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that just pretty much sums it up. I mean, it isn't as if the Michigan State offense has been a juggernaut. It's been more about it.
It looked
actually.
a lot better today.
but it looked a lot better. Colin Cook has emerged as the quarterback. He's very solid, and they were very efficient. And the Indiana defense today just never made the plays, never got themselves off the field. It was even different than the Missouri game, because at least in that one they came up with 3 turnovers in the first half.
Yeah, exactly.
Today they just basically got rolled. I mean, they gave up third downs with regularity, obviously, but they got Michigan State was able to run on them. Michigan State was able to pass on them. It just wasn't a good performance by the defense, and you have to credit Michigan State for some of that, and you have to question Indiana for some of that. And then Indiana's offense played in fits and starts, which was somewhat predictable, I think, today, coming in against this defense.
Yeah, it wasn't going to be smooth sailing.
No. So,
but no, Indiana. I mean, the thing I think that stands out to everybody is Indiana just whiffed on tackles.
Yeah,
just whiffed.
Yeah.
I mean, and I didn't think they made a point of saying I felt like we were in good position most of the time. He even did say there were some adjustments, there were some formations that Michigan State pulled out that they hadn't seen before. They were doing some unbalanced line type of stuff that they hadn't seen, and that put them in some they weren't really sure about checks and stuff like that, so they had some issues there. But mostly they were in where they were supposed to be and just whiffed.
I agree. I mean, to me, this isn't on the coaches per se. I didn't see anything wrong with the scheme today.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess technique is part of coaching.
Yes,
but
it is.
Nevertheless, sometimes guys just athletically can't make a play. I mean, one time Langford went for 44 yards around end, and there were 2 Indiana guys that had a shot at him in the backfield, and they just weren't fast enough to get there. I mean, there's that kind of stuff happens where
it happens
sometimes
a lot in Indiana, though.
But yeah, it does, and I to me, I asked Kevin, Coach Wilson, about tackling after the game, and he didn't sound like he thought it was acutely worse today than it normally is or whatever. And he said he thought the team played hard. And we're up in the press box. It's nothing like being down on the sidelines where you can really see effort and you can really hear the pads pop and all of that. But today I just didn't see much fire from the defense from my press box perspective. I really didn't see guys flying around, flying to the ball. And nobody was making the big play. I mean, where you just had to make a play to get off the field, and nobody was doing it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think for the most part, they kept him. Michigan State offensive line kept him anywhere near Connor Cook.
Yeah,
and Indiana had a couple sacks, but for the most part, it's weird. I mean, you do tend to skew to that stat too many times to think, all right, well, is he getting pressure or not? Well, how many times did he get sacked? I think Cook got sacked as many times as Sudfeld did, but Sudfeld's day was definitely affected significantly more by pressure than Cook's was. Cook had a lot of days, a lot of passes that he got to throw with all kinds of time. Indiana couldn't get to him.
I mean, Cook played with impunity. Sudfeld played with pressure.
And
tons of it. I mean, and I think that's absolutely true.
Yeah, that's huge. But I mean, like you said, I mean, there was the one Langford run. I think somebody pointed out that that's just their whole day. They had like 2 or 3 guys around him, like right on the edge, like right on the edge, right around the tackle when he was coming around that, just getting the block, and nobody got a hand on him, and he was gone.
Yep,
it was over.
Yep.
It was just like there's a couple of those plays that just like if Indiana makes the first play, gets gets contact, at least slows the guy down. I mean, he was able to just, Langford especially, was able to run through arm tackles, and Langford had not run for more than 68 yards except for one game.
Right. I mean,
Western Michigan, he had 94 in the first game, 68 was the best he had in the last 4. He had 109 today and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, Indiana got beat
on a reception.
Indiana got beat in the line of scrimmage again, and Kevin Wilson acknowledged that, and that's just. It's hard to win games when that's going on. I mean, it's just the way it is, and it's I will say this. I mean, Indiana's offensive front lost another star. They had lost 3 starters for the season coming in, and now the replacement at right tackle, Ralston Evans, got dinged, and so they got a third stringer going there, and at least a couple of the other offensive linemen who are purportedly healthy really aren't. Of course, that's normal this time of year. I mean, guys get banged up, but we're talking about guys that are actually impaired.
And it went from being a strength. They went from being a real strength at the beginning of the year to a weakness at best.
They're playing backups, and a couple of the stars who are playing banged up. So, I mean, it is what it is, but it's not good enough right now. They're not being able to protect Sudfeld, which is one reason why we thought we might see a little bit of Trey Roberson today, and in fact we did. And what we saw was generally pretty good.
It wasn't bad. It was interesting. There was a lot of interesting going on there today. I mean, Sudfeld's obviously got the better arm, and I still think he has just better overall game control. But he does not handle pressure well. As far as like just offense and just straight up defense pressure. Well, he is. Wilson didn't say he looked antsy. I mean,
in terms of outward appearance, it does. Yeah. I mean, and Wilson was right when he said Nate actually extended a couple of plays.
Yeah, he did. No, he's always got the. That's not the issue. The athleticism isn't the issue. Can he get around it or whatever? Well, the issue is that he doesn't. He can make a throw and a run. I've seen him do it, but he just looks antsy in there. Well, he panics.
Well, he talked about it being. A little out of sync. Just a hair off. Well, I mean, I think part of the reason he's a hair off is because he's throwing it. He's rushed. He's throwing it fast. He's not throwing when he wants to. He's not comfortable when he's throwing. And I once again, I mean, whether you say he's rattled or whether that's just a matter of what you do when guys are in the backfield all the time, pressuring you. The fact is, it doesn't work well. And then Trey looked more composed, but I don't know if Trey had more time or not. But yeah, I mean, Sudfeld's had 2 games like this now. And look, I mean, he's a sophomore. He's making his first true road start today, and that's one area of his game that seems to be a little bit of an Achilles heel right now. That if people get pressure on him, he's not nearly as efficient as he tends to be when he's not pressured.
Right.
So, and that's a matter of, I think, partially just experience. I mean, Coach Wilson was saying, you got like 1.8 seconds to go through your progressions and stuff like that. And if you're seeing things you're not used to seeing, especially if you're seeing guys in your face, if you're not as experienced as some other guys, it's going to affect you. It just is. Doesn't mean that he won't get better at it. It doesn't mean that he won't learn how to take it in stride better, because I think he will. But right now, I do think it's an issue.
No, that is. The Roberson thing's a very interesting. It throws us an interesting wrinkle in, just because you'd started to see them kind of. Last week he was pretty much a wildcat quarterback. I mean, not exactly that. I mean, there's a difference in, literally being a wildcat quarterback where you're a tailback and there's no chance you're throwing the ball. And, Roberson, at least you have to account for the possibility that he might. Now, this week he threw it a lot more, and he looked good. And that's what we've seen in practices and stuff like that. And what Wilson's been making a point to say is he's not just going to be a running quarterback. He's going to be able to throw the ball.
I thought the coaches did a really good job of that today. I mean, I thought they put him in at the right times. I thought that they allowed him to come in around midfield. They allowed him. His first 2 plays were throws today. Yeah. And I think that's good. I mean, it gives defensive coordinators a lot to think about.
It does. The thing about it was just that you hadn't seen. I mean, Trey had been pressing. You could tell when he was out there before that he did, and that's that is what's always the strangest thing to play when you're doing this multiple quarterback thing. Is today I mean, everybody that was talking at me on Twitter or whatever was like they should put Roberson in. Obvious solution. And it's never an obvious solution with this thing. But that's the tough part about it, is when you're dealing with these 2 quarterbacks. I mean, today it was clearly Trey's day. It was obvious that he was the guy that had more presence. He had more poise.
He was sharper.
And now the thing about it is, though, is they both. You take one out, and there's an element that's not there. Like when you take Roberson out. If Roberson's not playing, then you don't have the quarterback as part of the run game. And Sudfeld can run a little bit. I'm not saying he's not athletic, but obviously you're not calling a lot of runs for him. Where you're calling runs for Roberson, that makes the zone read game more effective when Roberson's in there. Now, when Sudfeld's not in there, the deep ball's not as much a part of the game. I mean, deep intermediates, and if you beat the guy bad, if Shane Wynn beats somebody by 30 yards,
Right.
over the middle, you've got that. But you're not throwing that, sideline fade where you got to put it in a, just put it over his shoulder and just fade it right over the D-back. That's not a Roberson
But
throw.
Nate wasn't able to do that very well.
No, he didn't do that well at all. So the element wasn't there.
It was a good time to play Trey.
Sure.
And Trey ended up 11-17, I think,
right.
or something like
that. But the issue is that Kevin Wilson tries extremely hard to tell everybody that it's not a controversy. I mean, I don't know if a quarterback battle can ever be a controversy, depending on certain definitions. It's a quarterback battle. It's football. It's not the government shutdown. But this is started when it starts to become a thing. When you start to question yourself on every drive. Who should be out there, and that's when I think you've got to not it's not a controversy per se or whatever, but that's when you're dealing with issues. This is okay, whose day is it? When it's like you're rolling dice.
I think it's partially like that. I mean, look, Northwestern plays too, and they do kind of go with the hot hand, and I think that's kind of what'll happen here to a degree. I mean, I think Sudfeld's going to remain your starter. I mean, Kevin made that pretty clear today too, and I think Trey's going to play. And I think if one of them's having a better day than the other, then you're going to see more of that guy. But I think that he wants Nate to be the starter and to develop, and he wants Trey to be a really nice change of pace. And there's no reason why that can't happen.
Right, but I don't get the impression that the way he's run it so far, I don't get the impression that Nate comes out unless he screws up.
Well, maybe. But
that's something that's like Trey comes in at short yardage, but I don't get the impression that Trey's getting a drive just to get a drive. Whereas with Northwestern,
maybe after today he will. Though.
Yeah, maybe.
I thought when they brought him in at midfield, it was not something that had to happen or clearly needed to happen.
I think by that point Nate was playing. Nate had missed on a couple.
Maybe so, but it was right after a quick change. It was after the fumble punt, and you're already past midfield. So
right.
Anyhow, but I mean, we'll see how it goes moving forward. But to me, it's not that controversial yet. Or
again, I don't
necessarily
think
will become.
It's arguably that a quarterback issue can never be a controversy. I mean, because it's just a quarterback battle. It's it's football. It's not.
No, it can't. I mean, it certainly can be, but I don't know with this particular team under these circumstances it is yet.
Yeah. I mean, they don't have a locker room issue.
No.
I mean, that's obviously not
pretty
a problem.
Clear.
So, but it's just at what point is it? Are you just kind of throwing darts at the wall?
Right.
So I don't know. Anyway, we're gonna cut this thing off because it's getting long. Thanks, everybody.